Boys and girls, today we are going to be starting a abstract color theory weaving project. I know that sounds like a lot of things, but we are going to break it down step by step. Let's get started. So very first, we need to talk about the color wheel and color theory. So the color wheel is a way that colors are organized and it shows their relationships to each other. Color, as you know, is one of the elements of art, and that is going to be a primary piece of this project that we're starting. So look at the color wheel that's on the screen, and look at the triangle that's in the very center. You can see that there is yellow, red, and blue. These are our primary colors. From these colors, we can mix all the other secondary colors. So our secondary colors are orange, purple, and green. So that is the basis of the color wheel. Now, if we look at the screen, it goes in rainbow color order. So starting with red, which in this scenario is on the bottom right-hand side, we go red, red, orange, orange, yellow, orange, yellow, yellow, green, green, blue, 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 purple, purple, red, purple. So there are several different designations of colors. So we just talked about primary colors, and primary colors are what mixes all the other colors. And then we talked about secondary colors. These are the product of mixing our primary colors. Now, for this project, we are going to be using analogous colors and complementary colors. So let's talk about what analogous colors are. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. That means that they're neighbors. So for example, if we started with red, the analogous colors to red would be red, orange, orange, and then if you were to go the opposite way, it would be red, purple, and purple. As another example, we could start with green, and our analogous colors would be blue, green, and blue. And if we went the opposite way, it would be green, yellow, and yellow. Now, if we are going to be talking about complementary colors, that means that it is directly opposite each other on the color wheel. So, if we were going to start with yellow, what would be the complementary color? That's right, it would be purple. Now, as another example, let's start with blue. What would be the complement of blue? That's right, it would be orange. These are the basic color relationships on the color wheel. Boys and girls, the next element of art that we need to talk about is value. Now, value is lightness and darkness of a color. So looking at this scale that we have on the screen right now, this shows 7 variations from white to black. So if you squint your eyes, you can see how it's a gradual progression going from white to black. And that is what we are going to practice in this project. We're going to be practicing making values of a color. Now, boys and girls, let's talk about the definition of abstract art. Abstract art is art that does not attempt to represent reality, but instead uses lines, forms, colors, and texture to create its effect. So that is what we're going to be focusing on today. We're going to be creating our very own original abstract piece of art using line, value, and color. So let's get started. So very first, you're going to want to pick up your pencil. We are going to be making our own wavy line shapes, and there's no right or wrong way to do this. So as you can see, I just started in one of the corners of my paper, and I'm going very slowly. So this is going to look like a giant scribble, and essentially that's what it is. But we don't want to just scribble really fast on our paper. We want it to be very controlled, so that it can look intentional. So I started at the corner of my paper, and I'm making these wavy curved lines, and I'm going around the edges of my paper, and I'm crossing over my lines, and essentially, as you can see, I'm making these shapes. that are on my page. So I just connected my last line to my starting point. So this is one continuous line. From there, I'm going to take a permanent marker and I'm going to trace over those lines. Okay, from here, we want to take a look at our paper and the shapes that we created. And each of these shapes is going to be a different color and value. So if you have some areas that have really large shapes, you're going to want to close those off by adding lines. Also, just ignore my cat. He gets very curious, and so as you can see, he's up on the table. So take a look at the shapes that you have that are very large and look at ways that you could close those off by adding lines. So my center ones look pretty good. That one was a little large, so I'm going to add a line that's going to close that off. I'm going to then go over to the side and draw a line that's going to make the shapes that were on the edge a little bit smaller. Just ignore me while I move my cat off the table. All right, back to art. So this shape is very large as well. So I'm going to draw a diagonal line there to cut that off. I'm going to draw a line there to make these other shapes. So I want you to right now look at your artwork and assess the size of your shapes and add additional lines as necessary. All right, this next part, boys and girls, I want you to pick one paint color that you're going to start with. So in my case, I'm going to start with green. And I'm going to choose about half of these shapes, a little less than half actually, to paint in green. Now, to get a variation, I'm going to be adding different values of this green. So some of these shapes are going to be dark, some are going to be light, some are going to be medium, some will be medium light. So think back to that value scale that we looked at the beginning of this video. And I want you to, in the shapes that you're going to be coloring in, to think about how you can add variety. Now with this paint, you can adjust the lightness of the color by adding more water. If you want the color to be lighter, add a little bit of paint with more water. And on the opposite, if you want it to be darker, you need to add a little bit of water with more paint. So let's see how I finish this off. All right, boys and girls, so as you can see, I've colored in about half, actually a little less of my shapes with the paint. And I have a range of value. I have very light green, like this shape, all the way to very dark green, which means I've added more paint, less water, and then a range of values in between. So you want to make sure that you have a good range. If you're seeing that you have mostly just light and dark, I want you to work on making sure that you have a good value range. So from here, we are going to pick an analogous color to the color that we chose to paint with. So if we remember what analogous means from our color wheel discussion, that means it is a neighbor of this color on the color wheel. So because I chose green, I'm going to either pick a blue or a yellow. And we are going to be using a variety of medium in this project. Now, medium is just another word for supply. So paint is an art medium. Color pencil is an art medium, which, like I said, is just another word for supply. So we are going to pick an analogous color in color pencil. So I'm going to be choosing blue because that is next to green on the color wheel. And then I'm also going to find some green colored pencils to color in the rest of my shapes on my paper. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the paint. We are going to take our color pencils that are in analogous colors and we are going to do a variety of values. So we are going to make some shapes really dark by pressing down hard with the colored pencil, and we're going to make some shapes light by pressing lightly with the colored pencil, as you can see me demonstrating right now. And then we're going to have some shapes that are in between, are light and dark. So let me finish coloring my page and we'll talk in just a second. All right, boys and girls, at this point, your paper should be completely filled with different values of your analogous colors of choice. So from here, we're going to transform our paper into a loom for weaving. Now, as you remember, a loom is a device on which you weave. And weavings traditionally have been from yarn or textiles. Look at your shirt. I'm looking at my shirt right now, and you can see tiny little yarns or threads that are woven together. Now we're going to be creating a paper loom to weave with paper. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to fold your paper in half. You're going to match up those corners, and then you're going to press back to create a crease at the center. From there, you're going to have the folded part at the bottom, and you're going to take one of your sides and you're going to fold back just a little piece of paper, probably about a half an inch thick, and you're going to fold that there. That is going to be our stopping point as we are cutting our lines for our loom. So where we just folded that crease, we are not going to cut past that point. Now, in traditional paper weaving, we would cut a straight line up here to create our loom lines. But because we have created this curvy abstract piece of art, we are going to actually be cutting a curvy line. So you're going to start at the bottom middle of your paper. You're going to take your scissors and you are going to cut all the way up to that stop line. And you're going to be cutting a curvy line. So see, I started at the bottom middle, and I'm not cutting straight, I'm cutting a wavy line. And I'm going to keep cutting until I get to that crease that I made. Okay, so from there, now we have two equal portions, and it almost looks like little shorts. So we are going to now take these halves, and we're going to cut them in half again to make 4 sections. So I'm going to start in the bottom middle again on one of my sides, and I'm going to cut a curvy or wavy line. And I'm going to keep cutting until I get all the way up to that crease. Perfect. So now I'm going to take the other side of my shorts, and I'm going to start at the bottom middle again. And I'm going to cut a curvy line all the way up to that crease. Now, after I'm done with this side, instead of having 2 sections, I'm now going to have 4. All right, so now I have my 4 sections, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, in total, I need 8 sections. So because I have 4, I'm going to cut each one in half again. So I'm going to start at the bottom middle of this section. I'm going to cut a wavy line, and I'm going to keep going until I get up to the top of that section. Perfect. And I'm going to take the next section, and I'm going to start in the bottom middle, and I'm going to keep cutting until I get up to that crease. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my last 2 remaining sections. I'm going to start at the bottom middle again, and I'm going to keep cutting all the way up. Whenever I'm done after my next section, I should have 8 pieces. And that's when I know that I am done and I am ready to start weaving. So I'm almost done right here. Perfect. And as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So from there, I'm going to open up my piece of paper, and I now have my loom. Now, boys and girls, let's look at the color wheel again. I want you to think about the colors that you chose for your painting that we just did. So in my case, I chose blue and green, which are analogous colors on the color wheel. So for my weaving, I'm going to want to choose the complementary colors of those colors. And remember, complementary colors are colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel. So in my case, because I chose blue and green, I'm going to look at what is across from blue and what is across from green, and that is going to be my next color choices for my weaving strips. So in my case, the complement of blue is orange and the complement of green is red. So that is going to direct my colors for my weaving strips. All right, boys and girls, we are ready to start weaving. So like I said, we just created a paper loom, and a loom is a device that we weave on. And our weaving material is going to be these strips of paper. So the thing you need to remember for weaving is the pattern in and out, or under, over, under, over. That's going to be the basic pattern that you need to remember to have a successful weaving. So I'm going to take my first strip of paper and I'm going to then start at the edge and I'm going to go under my first strip on my loom. Then I'm going to go over the next strip on my loom. And keep remembering the pattern. We're going under, over, under, over. So I'm going over that strip. Then I'm going to go under the next strip. I'm going to go over the next one. Then I'm going to go under the next strip. I'm going to go over the next one. And then I'm going to end by going under and over. Okay, perfect. We have our first strip woven. Now, for the next strip, we are not going to start the same way that we did the other one. So because we started by going under, we're going to want to now start by going over. So I'm going to take my strip of paper and I'm going to start the opposite way that I did my first strip. So instead of starting under, I'm going to start over, and then I'm going to go under the next strip. I'm going to go over the next one, and I'm going to repeat this pattern until I get to the end. Weaving will create a checkerboard type pattern, so I'm never going to have my red and orange strip directly under each other because I'm going opposite. Okay, so as you can see, I am starting to create my checkerboard pattern. So I'm now going to take my red strip again, because we're creating a pattern by going red, orange, or whatever color that you chose. And I'm going to, again, start opposite of what I just did because I want to continue this checkerboard pattern. So taking my strip, starting under, then going over, under, over, and I'm going to continue the rest of my paper just like that. All right, great job weaving. Now, the last thing we need to do is make sure those weaving strips stay in place. So we're going to take our glue and we're just going to add a little dot on those ends and put some glue down, press it down so that they don't move. And we're going to continue just down our strip until all of those pieces are glued down. Once we have the gluing finished, our masterpiece is complete.